What's happening, everybody? Today we're up in Beverly Hills. We're actually filming a piece and a podcast with Drama. Not sure if you guys know who Chris Drama Path is, but he owns the company Young and Reckless. He was on that show, Robin Big in the Fantasy Factory. Just an incredible guy, amazing entrepreneur. His story is incredible. So we're gonna interview with him. We're gonna film a bunch of content. Stay tuned. This will be fun. All right, everybody, welcome back. We have a very special guest today. I'm super pumped. I've been watching this man's story for a long time and super pumped to be here in his office, in his studio here in Beverly Hills. The man, the myth, the legend, Chris Drama Path.
Here I am. This is great, man. I'm excited we finally connected.
Thank you.
We've been trying to connect for some time, and I'm excited we just got our new little mini podcast office here. Still, we're putting a lot of work in, but by the end of the week, it should be good, and this is a good way to kick it off. So I couldn't be more excited.
I love it, brother. Well, thank you again for having us here in your home, basically.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you spend a lot of time here, almost more so than at your house.
Yeah, here more than my actual home. Yep, that is true.
I get it. And that is the life of an entrepreneur. And the word itself right now is being used all over the place.
Yeah.
Like it's this like it's rad, or it's this word like cool.
Yeah.
It has taken on this world that was not my world.
Yep.
So I'm 42 years old. I was basically told I was a loser because I was doing this kind of stuff at 12.
Yeah.
I've been hustling from the get. It's been fun for me to watch your journey.
Yeah.
You basically grew up on TV, man. A big part of that's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to do.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start this thing off and go into your past of maybe kind of tell us what it was like being from Ohio, and then that big leap of I'm rolling to LA.
Yeah. So that story can be as long or as short as you want it to
I can only imagine.
So I'm going to give you some key bullet points, and then if there's anything else, you tell me where to dive deeper into.
Cool, fair enough.
So I grew up in Akron, Ohio, small town, outside of Akron, Ohio, and was obsessed with skateboarding from the age of probably 10. And I was just super drawn to it. I never liked school activities. I never liked team sports. I never liked coaches. I never liked being told what to do, I guess. And I just fell in love with skateboarding. And I did it all day, every single day, trying to get better, my initial dream was to be a pro skateboarder. And very similar to what you just described, I always had the entrepreneurial spirit before I knew that that's what it was, and before I knew that it was the cool thing to do or any of that. I was always trying to gather weird stuff from my parents' house and do yard sales and figure out how to package things to make them look better than they were, and do all this stuff when I was super young. And then when I got a little bit older, I had started filming my friends skateboarding. I became kind of the filmer of the group, and so I bought a nice camera. And I also learned that I could I started with my cousins, going to my cousin's Little League football games. I could film the game, go home to my computer that I knew how to edit and make DVDs because of skateboarding, and make DVDs of the game, and then come back the next week and sell them to the parents.
All the parents.
Yes.
Ate them up.
And at that time, you couldn't do that. So the idea of someone showing up with DVDs with a nice cover of your son playing football was like, oh my gosh, I'll definitely pay for that.
Sold them all. And so that was really part of how I paid for what would be my move to LA. So did that, skateboard. That's all I did. Figure out ways to make money. I always say, because, the topic comes up, and I like to ask it in a way that's not offensive. When it comes to money, my parents, lived off of a very, humble income, but they never made it show. Money was never an issue growing up. It was never we're rich or we're poor. I just didn't think about it. And, our vacations looked like we packed up in the minivan once a year and we drove down to Myrtle Beach. Yep.
And, we chose to forfeit cable as one of the expenses, which thank God, because, I guess it made me go outside more and love skateboarding more. But that's kind of the zone we played in, right? We did okay.
And I never knew it was an issue, but we definitely didn't have money for all of the, finer things like cable TV. So I in love with skateboarding. That's my thing. I knew at about age 14 I wanted to move to LA as soon as I graduated high school because LA is the skateboard capital of the universe, right? Yep. And the way we looked at LA as kids was unlike, I'll never look at any other city the same way again. Nothing will ever be on that pedestal. And so by the time I got to 18, I knew that I wasn't good enough to be a pro skateboarder. I just wasn't the best one. There were other people around me that were just more talented. And so that's when I started transitioning into filming and making skate videos and doing stuff like that. And so I saved up my money from doing stuff like making skate videos and selling them to the local skate shops, selling these football videos, and my high school graduation money. I skipped the day of school that you did the SAT, ACTs. There was no question, right? I'm not going to college, right?
Me either.
Didn't even show up. Free day for me. And then here's the other weird turn that my story took is I graduated, whenever you graduate, June, I think. And my plan was I'm going to go over to my friend's house literally right from graduation with my cap and gown still on. We're going to drive down to Dayton, which is 3 hours away, because there was a big skate park opening. And we were going to skate all weekend and have so much fun down in Dayton. I was going to then drive back up to Akron and start to really plan my move. And where am I going to stay and, look at apartments and stuff like that. And I went down there. We had an incredible weekend. It was so much fun. On the last day, we're all going to the car because it's time to leave. Of course, this is when this stuff happens. We're all jumping down this last set of stairs. I jump, make a mistake, land back on my board in a weird way, fall, hit my head, wake up 4 days later, was in a coma, severe brain bleeding, fractured skull, blood clot in my brain, and concussions on both sides from just the rattling around in the brain, right?
Yep.
So I woke up, I literally remember eating breakfast and waking up 4 days later. And I couldn't read, I couldn't use my beloved computer, food had no taste. It was the weirdest, it was like your brain hit a hard reset.
100%.
And it was pretty brutal. And I was just pretty shook, but
it's super dramatic. I mean, there was a plan.
Yeah, there was a plan.
Like you had a plan.
And it just rattles you, man. It's weird having your brain rebooted. And it's weird waking up.
I've been knocked out several times. I get it.
It's weird. And it's weird when you wake up and like your fingernails are longer than they were than you last remember.
That's gotta be
and like
trippy.
I had baby little facial hair then, but like it was longer than, and I was like, man, what? Like,
how long was it out for?
What do you say?
And then like the first thing would be how long was I out for, right? Like what happened?
Exactly. Like what the hell happened? And so started to get my bearings back. The problem was the skull fracture had caused a blood clot in my brain. And the blood clot wasn't going away. And so I kept having to go every month to get CAT scans to see if the blood clot had went away, and it wouldn't go away. And they didn't really want me to move until then because they were worried that, you could have severe side effects from this thing. Yeah. So they wanted me to stay close to home. So finally, come November, they said, look, it's still not gone, but you can leave if you want. We know how bad you want to go. Just go. And if you start fainting or having seizures or any of these side effects, you got to come home. So I'm like, all right, screw it. So that's when I packed up. I went and I noticed, this is now in hindsight, I noticed it gave me severe anxiety and made me a, what do you call it when you always think you're injured? Hypochondriac for years because I was always worried. I would stand up too fast, get that lightheaded feeling and be like, oh my God, I'm dying.
But that's because all those doctors put those stories in your head. If something happens, you're really far from home where you're safe.
Yes.
You got to come home.
Yes.
And then you took that and poured fuel on it to make it real.
Yes.
I get it, man.
So everything, any feeling of discomfort or anything, I thought it was the end for me and I was going to have a stroke and die. And it turns out, this is the funny thing, I need now, especially that I'm focusing so much on my health and well-being and all this stuff, I need to just go back and get real, now that I understand this stuff a little bit more, get the real download of what happened, what's going on now, get an updated CAT scan, because I've never went back. I don't know what happened to the blood clot. I don't know any of that stuff. So anyway, that began my life into LA. And to kind of leave off this part and let you go on, is it was a change of worlds unlike I ever could have imagined. Not only was it that anyway, but then obviously, a year later, my life goes in the direction of a hit television show and all this different, just crazy roller coaster. And it all just, my whole life changed with that move.
Dude, but it's so admirable because you had a plan, you had a dream.
Yeah.
Something happened skating, which happens to a lot of skaters. It usually wraps their whole career.
Yeah.
and they go home and they just start eating pills like Tic Tacs and drinking and my life's over and woe is me.
Yep.
You're like, when can I go?
Yeah.
When can I go? So you still stayed the path.
Yep.
I think that speaks a lot to where you're at now.
Yep.
Like stuff happens in your life. What you do with it is so wildly important.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've always spent a lot of time with skaters and skateboarders, and I think they make incredible entrepreneurs. Half of your day sometimes is eating shit to try to get one little trick to feel good for about 9 seconds. Like that's kind of how entrepreneurship is, and having your own businesses and your own companies. So I think it speaks to your character. And then to go from that to this wild place of LA.
Yeah.
And I've been through here my whole life, born and raised in Long Beach, California, 3rd generation. But I grew up on the wrong side of Long Beach in like the quotes. I mean, I grew up in the hood.
Yeah.
I grew up, I mean, like single mom, raised poor.
Yeah.
And I learned it from like a very young age. Like, I got to put this hustle together or it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that little drive was really, really great for me.
Yeah.
But the thing that was fun for me to watch a long time ago was your progression of kind of being a little bit scared, but still not caring and rolling with it. And then to be able to snowball it into who you are now with a very big brand, very big company. And dude, I talk to a lot of people. We have a lot of the same people that we know through all these different mutual circles.
Yep.
I've never heard one person say a bad thing about you.
Yeah.
Like, dude, everybody.
I've worked hard for that.
Yeah, you and me both. Like,
Yeah.
like the best compliment I ever get, happens a lot, is like, dude, you're the same.
Yeah.
No kidding. Like, I couldn't be anything else.
Yeah.
I'm just me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm just trying to live my life and help as many people as I can.
Yep.
And you do it in a tremendous amount of ways. And now you're helping yourself.
Yeah.
And you like mentioned that health is very important to you.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about business on this, but we also talk a lot about health and what those kind of things look like. So, so I don't want to go too far past when you first got to LA,
Sure.
because that had to have been a massive shift for you.
Massive.
So the show blows up.
Yeah. And so did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Brother.
So,
Go ahead.
because the other thing is like that I really want to paint is like, because this is something that I now try to, you know, a lot of young people ask me questions, and I see this pattern coming up a lot. When I first moved here, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I didn't know my way around the city. I didn't know anything. My goal was to hopefully get a job at a skate shop.
Right.
So at least I could work in the skateboard industry.
Yep.
And that's when I had reached out to my cousin, Rob, who is, you know, the superstar that he is now. But at the time, he was a pro skateboarder. And I didn't know him very well, you know. We didn't grow up together by any means. He moved to LA when he was 16, and he's 13 years older than me. So I just knew he lived out here. I knew he was a cool dude. I knew he was a pro skateboarder. Like, it was way beyond my understanding, right?
Of course.
And so I reached out to him and I said, hey man, you know, anything, I'm going to be coming there, and anything I can do, like washing floors, toilets, I'll literally do anything.
Yep.
I just want a job. I want to be able to live in LA. You know, let me know if anything opens up. And funny enough, that's where I got the nickname Drama, because my email was Causing Drama. And he wrote me back and said, Causing Drama? What the hell? And I was like, no, I blew my only chance. And so when
That was awesome.
when I ended up moving to LA, he told everyone, this is my cousin. His name's Drama. He's a rapper. And
He just put you on like
made
that.
up all this stuff. And
Like, that's how he rolls.
Spread my yeah, it was just like a TV episode. He spread all my embarrassing MySpace photos against on the kitchen table at his house, and he's like, listen, everyone be nice to this guy, blah, blah, blah. And so when I got there, everyone was like, Drama, what's up? And I'm like, what? Like, I wasn't that guy, right? So anyway, so side story. But so I moved here, and you know, the first night I got here, I was pretty much in tears on the phone with my mom. Like, I think I made the wrong decision. Like,
That happens a lot to people that come to LA for the first
Yeah.
little bit. It's
gnarly.
shocking, man.
Especially from where I'm from. I'm from like borderline. I mean, outside of my high school window, there was a cow farm. We just watched cows all day.
We
right?
buy tons of real estate all over Cleveland and
Yeah.
Akron and Columbus, so I know the area super
You know
well.
it.
I
You
get
know
it, man.
Yeah.
I get it.
So anyway, so I came here and I was just felt like super overwhelmed. I was worried about falling over dead from this weird head injury, and I didn't know my way around. There was so much traffic. Everything just seemed so crazy, and I think that even took me quite a while to adjust to just living somewhere so different. And then Rob and I ended up becoming really close, and he's literally like my older brother. And,
For sure.
and I'm so thankful. I always say my parents did an incredible job from 0 to 18.
And then
And then Rob was almost like the big brother I really needed to
step in and understand this bigger way to play the game and this other way of life, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, it just was that feeling. And then what happened was I ended up working for my cousin, being his assistant, which was a chance occurrence that I got really lucky on.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his friends said, hey, man, don't do it. Don't work for him. It's going to ruin your relationship with him as a cousin. Like, he's really intense when he works, and he's serious, and you guys are not going to like each other. And I was like, man, what do I have to lose? If I hate it that much, I'll go work at the skate shop like I planned, but I have to give this a try. Ended up doing it. It kind of was like my beginner. It was like my version of college. And then all of a sudden, they drop off some cameras in the house, because it's before iPhones and all that stuff, and tell us just start shooting funny stuff that happens around the house. We think there might be a TV show
stuff,
here.
right?
Yeah, because it was him and Big Black.
Right.
And they're just hilarious. I mean, we all know the magic now. But at the time, they were just buddies, right? Filming skate videos. And so we had a mutual friend who put cameras in the house and said, if anything crazy happens, just film it so that we can kind of wrap our heads around what this even is. Of course, we use it to film all the dumbest things in the world, right? We're just, messing around. And then it came to like, okay, well, now there's someone from MTV in the house. Let's see what we can do. Now there's a writer in the house. Let's see what we can do. And that process alone took a year. There was 9 different edited versions of a pilot for Rob and Big that were pitched to MTV and denied before the final one was taken. And it was taken. It was called Rob and Big, and it exploded like we never could have imagined. And it was on MTV in a time when MTV was,
everything,
the thing.
And it was at the top of MTV.
I
got goosebumps because, dude, like, I get it. It was so fun for me to watch that journey.
Yeah.
And he actually breezed over a very important part. And I want you guys to take out your notes and notepads. He approached his cousin, his family, to work for free. Not like, hey, bro, can you put me on? Just the plain humility of like, give me a shot. I'll do whatever it takes. Even to family, I think would separate you from most people.
Agreed. And I think that a big part of my story, once again, I only know this in hindsight, and now I try to apply it moving forward, but I've never taken myself too serious, man. I mean, you saw me on TV for 9 years getting the crap kicked out of me, right? It's like I knew that, number one, it's funny, right? What's funny is funny. And also I knew that this is the pathway to my own life in LA, and nobody owes me anything. And to think that I can come into any situation with a set of guidelines of how I need to be treated and what the respect level needs to be and what I'm willing and not willing to do, it just didn't register to me. So
me either. It's
100%.
mind-blowing.
And you'll find that about almost anyone that's truly successful is they don't live with that. Like, sure, everyone wants to achieve and to earn a certain level of respect and to not have to do the dirty work anymore. But I'm here every day in this office helping people break down racks and taking out trash. And there's nothing I'm above
me either
today. And I don't think you can ever get that way. So I will say that one consistent line in my story is I never took myself too serious. I was always willing to work for what I got, and I was always willing to just shut up and learn. And that served me incredibly well.
It's so smart, man. And you had an incredible mentor, and then that mentor, he had mentors and business partners around him.
Oh, yeah.
And then your whole network. I am such a huge proponent in like being around people that are going to a place that you want to go.
Yeah.
Because it just speeds up the time.
Yeah.
I got straight into real estate, and I was 30 years old and went to go work for this firm for free because I knew they were the best. I'm like, look, I know that I have the chops to do it, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to work for free because I know within a year I'm going to probably be a partner.
Yep.
But it's hard to do that, but you have to get around those people that have that fire.
Yep.
And I'm sure now it's in the reverse. People would work for you for free for a year just to have a taste of how the company's run.
Yeah. Hopefully. If so, reach out. I mean, send me a DM.
Yeah, DM drama. DM drama for some information.
Yeah, and I would also, another thing I would do just on that topic, because I think you're so right, is I also, like, the topic of mentors is so big, and as it should be.
It's blown up a little bit now, so we should for sure cover that, because everybody has a mastermind.
Yep.
Everybody's a coach online.
Yep.
So that's phase 2 of this. I want you to say what you were going to say first so we can move into that.
So what I was going to say is people always ask me, did you have a mentor? And I say, like, I never had, even with my cousin, obviously, he was more like he's my family. Like, he was more like a big brother to me that told me, like, how to navigate, like, relationships and, like, life.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? When I think of a mentor, I literally have 50 plus. And that's why I started my podcast. I interview a new mentor every week, and I follow up with these people, and I ask them questions about, what we talked about. And one of the biggest mentors to me at that time was my cousin started streetwear company called Rogue Status, and they made the famous shirt with all the guns all over it.
Yep.
And the owner of that company, or the creator, was this guy named Johan. And Johan was so cool, man, and he is so cool. He's still here. And
Past tense, Johan.
Yeah, I mean, Johan's so cool. And I remember that was the first guy. He was very LA streetwear, meaning he had a shop in Venice. He hung out in Venice with his crew. They had like little scooters, and they were doing tattoos, and it was just so LA streetwear. It was so freaking cool.
I remember.
And Rob would send me down there to like pick up shirts or something for him. And I would go down, and as quickly as I could, I would just try to soak in and ask questions and how are you doing this and what are you doing? And I think that was no question one of the biggest inspirations for me going on and starting a clothing line, is seeing like the ability to build a family of like-minded people and how cool that is and how powerful that could be. So shout out to Johan, and shout out to the 50 other people before I even started a podcast that I've done that with. I will not hesitate to ask anyone for advice, input, you know, anything.
But these are the secrets that are out there now.
Yep.
There's if you have the ability to ask, ask. I've been asking my whole life because I was raised poor. I didn't have anybody with anything. Like, who am I going to look up to?
Yep.
I would look up to movie stars in movies that were playing a part
Yep.
that wasn't real.
Yeah.
So then I get like into the business world, and I just had to figure this stuff out. I listened to a ton of audiobooks and went on these long bike rides, and my whole audience heard these stories 100 times.
Yeah.
But mentorship is important, especially because I don't want to take all those punches in the face that they may have. I want to cut time off. The only thing I can do is collapse time. And by having the right mentors around you, it's incredible. Because they're like, have you thought about this? Like, no, I haven't.
That's why I say, like, you can read all the books in the world, and I strongly encourage you try, but there's nothing like seeing how a person carries themselves through what you want to do. It's different. It's the way you greet people. It's the way you respond to people. It's the
100%.
way you reach out to who you kind of give the, like, I don't want to say leverage. I don't want to make it sound bad, but like who you cater to, who you stand up to, who you know, whatever. And also with multiple mentors, it gives you the ability to sort of triangulate, right? So not any one person knows all the answers to everything. It's just not true.
It's how I look at religion. I study all of them.
Exactly.
I take the cool stuff that works for me. I apply it. I punt the other stuff.
100%.
Same with my mentors. I've learned so much from being with these high net worth, high level individuals making big moves, sitting in the car while they're handling phone calls, and I listen to how they negotiate. I listen to how they navigate a certain situation. And then that phone call hangs up. They put on a different hat for the other company they own, and they go in that direction. And that has given me a tremendous amount of, one, to see it's possible. Like, wow, I can actually do that.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And once again, sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No, it's all good, brother.
There's so much about, and this is another thing I try to do on my pod, and I can tell you do too, which is why I love it, is there's something in us where you can look at something from a distance or read stories or watch movies, and you may understand it like from a conceptual standpoint, but you can't actually see yourself being it, you know?
100.
But when you're actually next to that person, or you're really hearing the truth or the details, you can be like, oh shit, man, I'm not that, I'm similar. I'm so similar. And let me now I just listened to him make a call because I was sitting in the passenger seat. Let me now make that call I've been putting off and have a little bit of that same energy. And bam, you just got something done that you never would have got done, right? So the power of just being around people, it doesn't even have to be the same industry. That's why, like, kids out there, young people out there, don't be too picky with your damn mentors. Anyone that shares the same principles that you want to share, get around them and just see how they deal with people and schedule their time and their priorities, and you know what I'm saying, confidence, and those things will change your life.
And listen to your gut. If you're around some mentor that you think is the greatest ever, and you just paid them 30, 40, 50 grand, and then you hop in the car with them and they're just brutal to people, they're an awful dick.
If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And I've been in those situations before, and I'm like, oh man, you're a scumbag, one. And then two, I can't believe I just gave you money. But it's these things where we all have these stories inside of us. Our voice is singular, it's ours, our stories are real, which is why I like to get people here on these podcasts to just share their stories, very similar to what you do, because your story is going to resonate with somebody. I've gone through some gnarly stuff in my life, ups, downs, crazies, I mean, drinking, I mean, you name it, I've gone through it, and I want people to be able to hear my story from my point of view, from my words, and they can relate to it or not. There's been plenty of times I'll be sitting with somebody and I've never met them. We sit down, we start chopping it up, and something will happen and we'll both be triggered onto a point. And I'm like, I had an instant connection with that person because we shared that experience in two totally different times. But that bond of me just being vulnerable to have the conversation opened that channel up to be connected.
Yeah, 100%. You don't know who you're really connected with unless you're putting your real self out there.
And that's why I love podcasting is I get to just, and so the first podcast that we ever did, it took me a year to even start it because I made up every excuse not to do it. No one's going to like it. No one's going to listen to it. And then I just did it. It was just me and the microphone for a year. It exploded. It was great. Very, very humble. And then I started a second one because I wanted to be around people like yourself to have these conversations, let people know it's possible. Like it's 100% possible.
I'm in the same boat.
And I just love the direction that you've gone with the brand, with yourself. I mean, so many people that were in your position with your opportunities imploded in this city.
Oh, sure.
I mean, just into like fractal, like starlight energy to death. And I'm sure you've seen it happen. And it was close to happening to me. Like I had to reel myself in. So, but that's when, but I'll never change that because it got me so into health. Like I started teaching yoga. My friends, I was out of my mind. I got super into yoga and oils and like crystals and all this stuff. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, but I like it. I'm learning more. So maybe walk us through when the show went from Robin Big, then it went to the Fantasy Factory and became this, mecca. And then the show was winding down, but you already had your brand. I mean, you were already going full gas. And you already had huge deals, with PacSun. Your brand's global. And it was cool for me to see kind of the beginning stages of that, of like, you were still very much into music and producing music and stuff, and then it just kind of went in a very different direction. Was that maybe pushed by you, or more of a just like, I don't know what direction to go? Or is it more from your friend Johan and you saw that and you're like, I'm just going to do this?
No, it was another, once again, another thing that I have viewed, there's a lot that I view in my past as bad qualities.
For sure. We all do.
More than good, right? That I've tried to work on. But my point is, there are a couple good ones. And the other good one is, it was awareness is what it really was. So this is how it looked from my side. So once again, I'm going to give you the short version. Ask me anything in between. So Robin Big explodes, and that just changes like life. It's just, I remember Jeff Tremaine, the creator of Jackass, came up to us because he executive produced the show, came up to us before the first show aired, and he said, yo, your guy's life is about to change. Like when you're walking into the gas station, people are going to recognize you, because he had seen Jackass explode. And we said, nah, man, come on, you sound crazy. And that show became such a hit on such a good time for MTV, and it really did do that, exactly that. And I was a pretty small part of that show, but slowly and surely it started happening to me. So that was the first thing. And we realized kind of the insane opportunity that we had at this very moment, because everything you do is on steroids,
That's right.
And so, so my first thing, I was still frantically trying to figure out what my thing was going to be, because I didn't want to be a celebrity. I knew that being around this show and staying in that energy was my key, because that was going to amplify whatever my next thing was. But
smart.
There was no part of me that wanted to be a celebrity or wanted to keep doing like MTV or, go do club appearances for a living, or that was far from the end of the road for me. Right. And so the first thing that I picked up was music production, and that was because I grew up playing the drums. My dad played the drums for my whole life, and I loved the drums, but I never knew a cool way to apply it. So I learned that you could buy a keyboard and make beats, and I would just sit there and make beats all day long, and Big Black would rap to them, and that's where some of the ideas for the episodes came up, like the Bobby Light episode was because we were just...
That was fire, too, man. That's such a good episode.
Yeah, and that came from like me and Big Black literally in the bedroom at 11 p.m. at the house. We all lived there, and we were just making beats, and he's rapping, and that's just what we did. And then Rob came down being funny and started singing and said, oh, I'm like Billy Ocean, but I'm Bobby Light. And then the next day, he's like, let me record a song. So we let him record, and then the next day... they were like, this is an episode. Like, we could make an episode out of this. So that's what I was doing. I convinced the executive producers to let me put some of my beats on the show in the transitions, like when it's going to commercial and coming back.
Oh,
it's funny now, because if we had it now and I could point it out to you, we'd laugh out loud, because
you're like, that's my beat, that's my hook?
Yes, and they were horrendous. It sounded like a broken cell phone ringtone, right?
This is a total side story, and it just dropped into my brain.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No.
There's this song that my friend, who is the VP of Capitol Records, I made him find it for me because I couldn't find it back in the day anywhere. It was that Making Moves, where like Ludacris had the hook.
Yep.
I played that thing forever because I would die laughing. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was dope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Greg, I can't find this thing anywhere. He's like, I'll find it for you. And he sent it to me, and I was like, fuck yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I got it on my hard drive if you want the...
Yeah, dude, it's literally on my phone right now,
it's so
on my
good.
playlist.
Yeah.
Love
so
that
that's
shit.
where like music got so heavily tied into all of the shows, because I was legitimately trying to be the next Scott Storch, and Rob just has a really funny way of singing about everything that's going on in his life. And so the point was, music was my first thing. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to be a music producer. And when Robin Big came to an end, keep in mind, I was such a small part of Robin Big. I couldn't get any clothing deals. I
don't think that's accurate, though, man, because you were a huge part of that show.
It is in hindsight. I'm telling
you.
Yes.
Really?
I'm telling you in hindsight, because you've now packaged me all together with Fantasy Factory also. If you look at Robin Big as an isolated thing, it was...
Oh, like back in the house, you mean, when it was the house and the pony? And
yes, it was only 3 seasons.
That's right.
I was just like, hey, drama, go mess with the pony. Like, it was very, like, I didn't have any, you didn't get to know me as a character, nothing. And it was Fantasy Factory where I really shined. And then everyone was like...
Because there was a booth and like all the recording stuff. And I was like, that dude's super talented.
Yeah, so that's all. So Robin Big... You know, I think when all was said and done, Robin Big, I might have made a total, because I was paid per episode I was in, like, you know, $1,000 or something. I think I made a total of like $7,000 or something. So even though I felt like kind of cool, because I had made it from Ohio, and, you know, obviously my high school friends and stuff were seeing me on TV, but I wasn't making money. Right. So when Robin Big came to an end is when I quit working for Rob, and I said, hey man, I really need to try to pursue this music thing. And I dove full on into music. The idea for Fantasy Factory came up about a year later, I believe. And that was because Big Black had moved to Texas to raise his daughter. Rob and I were the only ones back in LA. MTV reached out and said, man, you know, Robin Big was such a hit. And they ended that on their terms, not MTV. Robin Big decided to end it.
So smart.
Yeah. And so they said, look, man, just give us something. Please, Rob, give us anything. And that's where he came up with the concept for Fantasy Factory. It was me and him. I was so excited because I had watched Big Black create his clothing line and make a lot of money. And I had watched Rob make so much money from his sponsorships. And I thought, man, this is my chance. So that's why. So then leading into that, I heavily tied in the music stuff because, you know, I built that studio in the factory because, you know, this is my thing. And then that's when I came up with the concept for Young and Reckless. And what I thought was like, I just need, you know, this is, like I said, this is my shot. All I want in life is to live in LA, have my own life that's not dancing around in front of a camera, and live decently. And this is my chance to do it. And I saw what Johan did, and I saw what Big Black did. And I saw how well DC Shoes did off of Rob being sponsored by them. I'm going to make this brand Young and Reckless. It signifies everything we stand for. I'm also going to do my music stuff. And here we go. To answer your initial question, is the reason why music faded off and Young and Reckless really took off was because Young and Reckless really, really started working, and it really struck a chord. And I think the positioning to our audience was perfect. I think
the timing, the demographic, like you guys crushed it.
Retail was set up. I mean, there just happened to be PacSun, Zoomies, Tilly's, the perfect demo where all of our viewers go shop the next day. The brand name was good. Whatever, it just worked out. And I think the music stuff ended up being a grind. And we had some good records. We did a big Yellow Wolf record and one for Kelly Rowland and some big records. But it wasn't fun. It was like I was chasing down people trying to give them beats and trying to collect money for the beats and grinding it out. And Young and Reckless really felt like it was working so perfectly with me and where I was going. And so I kind of slowly went away from the music and focused on Young and Reckless. And also in the meantime, I tried a microwave burrito company, and I tried a accessories line of bracelets called Knickknacks, and I tried all of these different things. But Young and Reckless was the one that really had the magic, and that's why it's the one that, you know, everyone really knows.
And stayed.
Yeah.
And that's so funny because, I mean, there's so many entrepreneurs out there that you only see that like home run. You only see like the home run, like, you know, trot around the bases. You don't see the strikeouts.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see the falls on your face. And that's a big piece that I'm so glad you shared, because We've all done it. I mean, I've made some investments in some companies and I'm like, this is going to explode.
Yeah.
And just because of maybe the wrong person operating it. But that was an amazing lesson because now, I mean, I probably look at the operator at 94%, the product like 6 to 7%.
Yeah, as you should.
Because there's so much into that. And if somebody is like willing to die for their brand or their product and they're just all in and have a blind faith and they can't even breathe without doing that, they're probably going to figure this out. It's probably a better bet. So it's made me a better investor too, which was great. But you have to go through all those things and like bracelet companies and things that work and don't work. And I was huge into like the bar and restaurant business because what's funny now, because I don't drink, but I've got a super successful bar and restaurant in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And almost every square inch is covered in skateboards and we're renting out all the time. And the place is insane.
Yeah.
But I had to go through all these different processes to find out which was going to work best. And, I like investing. I like doing different stuff. It's fun, and it's a way to kind of use those chops. But so from that, the brand exploded.
Yeah. And quickly, just for what it's worth, for the sake of the value that we're trying to add.
Yeah.
The brand actually, so here's what we did. I went and found partners. I went to all the people that I had knew in LA, which wasn't that many, but to try to find the right partner for this thing. Because I didn't know. I'm 21 years old. I didn't know how to.
How did you pick your partner? Because this is like the strategical part.
Yeah.
I think that we can add a ton of value to these listeners.
Yeah.
Most people really mess that part up.
Yep. I'll tell you, there's only one thing because I don't want to act like I'm smarter than I am. And that one thing has ended up paying off because we're still very good friends. I was in their wedding. We still work together today. They understood me and what I was trying to do. And it wasn't about like, well, what's going to be the goals for the top line revenue by Q1? There was none of that. It was just like, look, we get it, dude. Like, there's an opportunity here. We can launch this thing. I think that we agree we could like layer it in and make a real brand out of this. I like the name. I like the logo. Like, we get you. And it worked, man, because if I would have I could have went to DC Shoes. I could have went to all these different people. I had access to those people. But Young and Reckless would have lasted 2 years if I did that, because there were then tough things that came up that I needed people with me in the trenches.
That had your back.
Like, not part of some like, well, we're not hitting our top line goals here for our, so we got to let go of this thing. It would have been dead 7 times by now. So it was that. It was, they got me. They really understood what I was trying to do and where I was at in my journey. And they had what I needed, being they knew how to make clothes. They knew how to at least where to start looking to staff the right salespeople and stuff like that, right? They had a clothing line. Their brand's called 5'4". They're still around and doing really well. But they had they do like men's contemporary. Now they do subscription. So lots of
shoes too.
They do shoes called
right?
New Republic.
That's right. That's right.
So, but very different than mine, meaning button-up shirts. Like I said, men's contemporary stuff.
It was a good fit though, because of what they were doing versus what you were doing.
Yeah, and we weren't battling for shelf space with each other, whatever. And so even though they didn't have the right like salespeople that knew like PacSun and stuff like that, they knew where to start looking. So we went and we hired a sales guy right away. We hired a marketing guy right away. That was our team. It was essentially me, my partner, sales guy, marketing guy. What we did was there was no investment. There was no money up front. They didn't even have money to throw around like that. I tied it into an episode of the show where I covered my office in Young and Reckless, made it look like the biggest, most exciting thing ever.
I remember.
I printed samples.
So was that the launch party that you did or something? There was like a launch party for a T-shirt or something that you did?
Yeah, and that was actually a later episode. The first episode where Young and Reckless was introduced was Rob bought me mice that were like the mice version of his dogs. And because he had dogs, I had mice. He had a big office, I had a little office, and the mice, it was Young and Reckless and my little mice. It was like a mini version, mini mogul, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And I remember being like, crap, man, like this sucks, but like whatever, like this is gonna get the brand out there, right? So
that's right.
And I had gotten lucky because MTV had just written kind of in their note, they would send back notes about what we were shooting, and one of the notes was, what is Drama doing? Like, we know he doesn't work for you anymore. What is he doing? You're just gonna have him sitting there?
Oh, gotcha.
And so it was like, oh, I know what I'm doing, and I had this thing, and so. Sorry, to answer your question. So then we filmed the episode of the show where Young and Reckless was tied in. I had a great relationship with the editors of the show. I went over, I got the DVD of the episode before it aired, right when it was done being edited, about 3 months out. We took it down to PacSun. We said, hey, this is about to be the next biggest thing in the world. You know how big Robin Big is. You see how big DC is. This is it. I'll shout out PacSun on everything I do, my social media, on the show, everywhere. Just, you have to buy it for all doors, and it has to be in the window the day after this show airs. Because I'm
Please tell me you signed that thing before that show aired.
Sign what?
Like the actual like thing that it was going to be like, you know, moved to PacSun. Because that was such a like gangster move you made. Like, look, this is going to get blown up everywhere. Sign this contract.
No, there was no, I had no leverage to have them sign anything.
Nothing.
It was just a buddy deal. It was like, look, here's the exchange. I'll shout out PacSun on all of our stuff. You know this show's a hit.
Right.
Like, you know it's a hit in your space. Look what it's done for, like I said, DC, and Big Black sold his clothes there. And in exchange for that, you have to take it, blah, 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 exclusive. We'll give it to you exclusive for like 6 months. And it's in the store. It's in the store the day after the show airs. And they just agreed. They said, yeah, we'll do that. And so we did it. And it launched, and it was in all doors, and it was in the stores. Here's what happened. Of course, the first week, amazing. Sales are great. Here it is. I struck it rich. I'm the next P. Diddy. It's all over.
I'm a genius.
I'm a genius.
That's right.
And you go another week, okay, another week, okay. All of a sudden, it starts just completely dying. And it was like the worst fear, because it's like, oh, this crappy merch from this reality dork. You know what I mean? It's just like what everyone's worst fear is. Like, you're going to try to...
story started in your head of like, am I good enough?
Yeah, like, you're going to try to sell us your merch. And that was my worst fear. I wanted to run a business. I didn't want to be a celebrity selling merch. And so it really started tanking. And in between, it was season 2 that we launched it. Season 1, I missed the boat. Season 2, we launched it. In between season 2 and season 3, it was dead in the water. It was sitting on the back of the PacSun stores on the floor, getting no attention. It was over in my eyes. And that's when we realized that, look, if we want this thing to be real, if we want to have the next hot clothing line, we have to go do the work. Who cares that I'm on a show or that it's not going to work with me? So we went and we did a deal with Machine Gun Kelly and started really following him and why he fits the brand and doing photo shoots and stuff like that. And then we did a deal with Meek Mill before his first album. And we started tracking down every single celebrity, actor, athlete, anyone who's anyone, and just please take this picture on and shoot the photo and post it on Instagram.
That's like the guerrilla stuff you have to do from the beginning anyway.
Yeah, right? You do. And I felt like the gift was we were on TV, we were exposed to millions of eyeballs, but the curse was we had to do extra the marketing work to change the perception, right? Because you're being seen by millions of eyeballs every single week. So people are going to feel one way about it.
Because the frame was set, right?
100%. And I've had to do something similar with my own image in the last few years, to be honest.
I bet.
And it's just about overpowering whatever the imaging that you don't want is, right? So
market perception and market trust.
Yeah, and so the awareness was huge, which was a great gift, but the perception wasn't necessarily exactly what I wanted it to be. So I needed to go change that. So we did it. And then I would say about year, it was actually year 2, it started to kind of pick up some steam. Year 3, it was like, oh man, this is something. Then year 4, 5, 6, it was like, whoa, like this is, I don't need, not in a cocky way, but like the show isn't affecting numbers anymore. Like this is a way bigger thing, and it's changed how people look at me, and it really became something. So I literally took one minor half question from you and went on a 20-minute rant, but that's how it looked.
But that's the value that I really want to share with this entire audience is he had a massive platform.
Yep.
He had a massive platform to get it into all these stores, and it still worked-ish. But then he had to go back to the grind, back to what's tried and true, and get it in the streets and hustling.
Yep.
And then year 4, 5, 6, he finally started to feel like, I got it. So all of you guys out there and all you gals out there, like, you're 6 months in and you're trying to figure out why you haven't popped yet. That's why.
Yeah. You know what I see a lot now is like kids with like a social media following, sometimes massive ones. And they're like, well, I just launched merch, but it's not really working, but it's just like, you just launched merch and you think that by telling your people go buy my merch, they're just going to do it, and that's not going to work
because it worked for 2 people once.
Exactly. And that's all that everyone's doing now, and that's become the new way of selling clothing is like build up a following, sell merch, and hope people just click because you told them to click. It's like if you really want to do clothing, you need to do clothing the same way everyone else has had to do clothing.
You have to understand the business, and it's gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah, but even if you don't, you can even, I'm not kidding, like just to be really honest, you can make a lot of progress and money and all that stuff alone now. Like meaning not alone, but like you can go, there's printers, you can obviously start your own Shopify account. Like you can do a lot of stuff and a lot of business without much infrastructure if you're selling printable items. But the point is,
what does your brand mean? What's it stand for? What does anyone care when they put it on? Why should anyone care when you post it? Who else are you getting to support it? Do they fit the brand? What are you building? Are you building anything, or are you just building your social media following and asking people to give you money for a crappy t-shirt? There's a very big difference. And I think that's what's becoming kind of the norm, is young people are starting to look at, well, I just have to build the biggest following possible, and then I can just sell shit, just anything. And do brand deals.
And that is the most amazing segue, because that's exactly where we're going.
Right.
Everybody thinks that I need to brand, but they forgot that building brand is not building followers. Building brand is not building engagement. Building brand is exactly what it says. It's building brand. Like the biggest companies in the world have built brand, so they can fuck with anybody because they've built brand. They didn't build followers. They built a quality brand. So to your point, it's not just about how big can I get, and that's the norm, because a lot of people, that's how they've been raised.
Yeah.
Like that's all they know, so that's their framework.
And it's easy.
Listen to
me.
There's
It's
no
so,
barrier.
And it's so hard. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard to build a following. That is true. But it's very easy to say, my only goal in life is to gain followers.
And that's why to monetize my followers.
Yeah, that's why when you meet people and you're like, what's your goal? And they're like, I want to be rich. Like, yeah, no shit, dude. You know what I mean? Like it's so easy to wake up with a singular focus of followers, money, more, better. And it's like, it's not interesting. There's nothing to it. What's interesting is, what are you building? I'm encouraging more young people to get out of their comfort zone to, like, what's your mission? what are you doing here?
I have a very simple message, and it's literally to disrupt this entire country and the world, hopefully, on how they buy real estate. I don't think you should buy a house first. I think it's a terrible investment. I think the bank owns it. I think you have a leased car and credit card debt, and now you have to work for 30 years. My whole message, I have an incredible book. It's called The 100 Doors. I'm going to give you a copy of it. It's, if you're a millennial, or you're for whatever, or if you're a third generation renter, you can buy a 3 or 4 unit building. You can put 3.5% down in this country, FHA financing, live in one of the units, rent out the other 3 to almost cover the whole mortgage. Now you're living for free. If you're building a brand, if you're a DJ, if you're into music, if you're into fashion, you can build a hustle within this building. Now you're a landlord, not a tenant. So I'm trying to tell all the single moms out there, because my mom would have retired very different. So that's a big part of my message, and I'm giving it out to the world.
And that's amazing. And that's something. And that's like, everything you say might not be telling you how to do that one thing, but that's the reason behind everything that you're doing.
100%.
And that's interesting. That's someone you want to talk to. That's someone you want to support. That's someone you want to whatever. What you're not doing is just saying, I'm getting
trying to get
more
a Ferrari.
followers.
I'm trying to get more. Plus, here's a complete sidebar, kind of. Since when is everybody going to be a millionaire? Like when I grew up, that was like one of the hardest things you could achieve. And now everybody I talk to, all the way down to the dudes that hit me up in DMs, hey, here's all these tiles of you that I did. I'm trying to get to 20 grand a month doing these. And I'm like, everybody wants to be a millionaire?
We're setting ourselves up for some real heartbreak.
Oh, and the carnage is coming. And I was running into real estate in 2008 when I got to see it firsthand. I can't wait and we have a very good friend in common, good old Gary V, and I've spent some time in his office in New York, and he looks me dead in the face and just got very real with me. And he's like, just put it out to the world for free, and you'll win and everything else. And I just listened to him. He's a great dude. But he's like, all you fuck faces are gonna get destroyed. And
don't get me wrong. My little sort of chuckling, like it's not good. Like it's really not.
It's scary,
it's not something
man.
I'm actually looking forward to. But man, there will be a bit of I think,
a shift. Well, you remember 2004, 5, 6 when it was like the Lambos and like it was the money, but it was more like MTV rap videos and certain things. And then it kind of went away for a little while. And it got a little more rootsy, a little more street. And it's that kind of thing is back a little bit because of social media put a spotlight on it.
And because hip hop's the biggest thing in the world
100%.
And because the economy's been amazing for the last however many years. Like we're living in the golden age.
This is the second, I want to make sure you guys listen to this and hear this correctly. This is the second largest growth cycle in our country's history.
And here's what's crazy is, not to get a totally different topic, but like to a lot of people, it doesn't feel that way. So don't get tricked by what you see and think that that's for everyone. You know what I mean? Like there's
100%.
a lot of people that it's a really long growth cycle, but a lot of people aren't partaking in the upside. And so I think there's a lot of people that are seeing all of this money again and seeing all this showing off again, and either A, feeling bad about themselves and
Which
it's
is
crushing
terrible,
where
yeah.
they could go, or B, thinking that they need to partake. And so then you're making really bad decisions and you're lying and you're building something that doesn't matter.
And it's not for you, man. Like you have to do you,
Yeah.
like 100% all the time.
And I want to point out, this
Yeah.
is coming from a guy who started buying watches, at 23, 24, bought a Lamborghini for my 26th birthday, bought a Rolls Royce Ghost for my 27th. I've done it, and I by no means am above it. And the whole like money can't buy happiness, it's not totally true. Like that stuff is really fun.
I agree.
But man, if you start to, I have also felt myself, just being honest, start to put my emphasis on how I was putting myself out to the world, and that is followed by a very dark time and everything feeling like it didn't make sense because your priorities start to shift and it never works out. There's never a happy ending to that story.
And you get numb. There's this numbness that comes over you that's hard for me to explain, but I'm a pretty darn happy person. And when I found my place, I was in this place like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, to the outside world, everything is on fire, everything is amazing, and I'm just broken inside.
Yeah, there's nothing like when you're like, what I always say, because this is something that like is so ridiculous, it's funny, is like, there's nothing like being like hungover, feeling like shit, unhealthy, lowest self-esteem in the world that you could possibly have. You just want to go get some Taco Bell and be a pig, but all you have is this freaking Rolls Royce, and you're in the Taco Bell drive-thru in a Rolls Royce feeling like such a clown.
Such a loser.
It's like the ultimate epitome of like, you are a douchebag. You went
suck.
over the edge, and now you're paying for it, you idiot.
And now you're going to go home and try to take a nap.
Yeah.
Dude, man, many a times.
Yep.
But that I would never change any of those experiences. That they've literally carved out my path, and my path is mine, and I get to share it. And you have an incredible podcast, which we're going to go into next, is like, how do all these people find you? But first, actually, I almost forgot about one of my favorite things to ask at the end. Can you pinpoint a certain point in your childhood that you really knew, like, you know what, I'm not like everybody else. I kind of have more of like an entrepreneurial bone in my body, and I'm going to see what that looks like. And you kind of touched on it before with your parents, how they didn't really flash, but they weren't really poor either. So if you could just maybe share a story with like a certain time or situation or place where you're like, you know what, I'm just not like everybody else.
Yep. Here's what I think I've learned. There was no moment. And that's what I've really started to wrap my head around. And because, we talked about earlier about our good friend Mikey Taylor and how he wants to do more speaking and stuff like that. And I'm the same way. I think I'm getting to that point in my career where I am interested in like speaking and what is my story. And, I think like one of the cool things about that is it forces you, even just as an exercise, it forces you to take your whole life and sort of package it into a lesson or a thing, and like, here's what I've learned. Here's how you can benefit. You have 45 minutes or however long you have, I don't even know, to tell it. I think that what I've learned is, same as when I was growing up skateboarding, I am addicted to growth.
Me too.
And purpose.
Yep.
And that is it. And all the achievements are great. All the punches in the face suck. But as long as I'm growing and learning, I'm the happiest. Doesn't matter what happened to me that day. It's like, that's the thing. And so I'm really trying to crystallize that down into like, here's what I would say are my 10 ways. Because what I'm trying to do is say, what I've tried to do in my life now is, how do you actually just make sure that you grow every day? Like, what are some things you can put into place where every day you grow, good or bad? Because if that's what affects my happiness and my overall self-esteem and everything about me as a person, then I need to make sure I'm doing it in some little way every day, and that will feed the rest of my life, right? So
because it has to be measurable, or you can't track it.
Yeah.
Just like in business.
And you want to grow towards something,
Of
right?
course.
It's like, if you just love growing, that's great, but that's only part of the battle, because you can grow every day and grow to nowhere. You want to now start to grow in a certain direction and also measure your growth and start to, like, if you can do that, you now, in my opinion, it's a bold statement, but I'm going to say it, that would cure a whole lot of violence, drug abuse, alcoholism,
Depression, anxiety,
all of it. So much of it comes from people with no purpose, and they're not growing towards anything because they're not passionate about anything. Their self-esteem is
absolute crap, and so they numb it with other things.
So
and
true.
man, it's shocking how little of a goal you need. You just need to go to bed at night feeling like you are a little bit better than you were when you woke up. Little bit. So little.
Dude, you just hit the nail on the head. I literally just posted this morning about that. Set targets and set goals.
Yeah.
And like, not to be cheesy and cliche, like set your targets and goals and all this stuff. I literally live my life in 90-day chunks and challenges.
Yeah.
I put crazy things on myself to get leverage on myself to get these things done, because now it's measurable. I do the same thing a lot of super successful people do, not because I'm smart, because they do it and it's worked for them. I'm going to give it a whirl, and it worked for me in my life.
Yeah.
Every morning as soon as I wake up, 10-minute meditation, no matter what.
Same.
I'm still in bed. I sit in gratitude for 5 minutes. I work out. Like, I got these 2 amazing kids, 3 and 5, and I play with my kids. Then I have, like, something green. I have this crazy coffee with fats and butters and everything. And then I get my day going for business. But I can measure if I missed that. I can measure if I hit those goals and targets. So now I can go back and I can run a definitive audit on my 90 days and say, did I hit it or not? And where most people get stuck is if they miss something, they stop. Don't stop. You can course correct. You can pivot. You can keep moving as long as you're going towards an overall goal, like you said, because people don't set those.
Yeah. And most people, unfortunately, the mentality that we're taught for whatever reason is struggle only as long as you have to until you reach the promised land, right?
That.
And it doesn't exist. It literally just doesn't exist. Like I said, I've had the lows and I've had the highs, and there is never a point when I've felt like I even slightly reached a destination. And this is a kid from Ohio who wanted to work at a skate shop, right? My expectations were really low. And what I'm saying is
most people hit those low expectations and then stop.
Yeah. But the goal is, like, there is no promised land. The goal is not to struggle until you get somewhere. It's to learn how to struggle the best you possibly can, because every day is going to be a struggle, right? And I mean that in a good way. It's like you should, okay, what's important to you? Health, family, your kids, whatever it is, work, your goals. Figure out how to monitor those and set those as clear as possible. Enjoy it while you do it and achieve and grow. And that's the key to, that's it. That's the whole thing.
That's it.
That's the whole freaking thing.
That's it. All the stuff we talked about, here's the whole secret.
Yeah.
He just gave it to you. Learn to be able to reintroduce yourself to a new version of yourself over and over and over again as you're growing as a person.
Yeah.
And being of service is such a great way to do it. That's why podcasting for me is so incredible.
Yeah.
I get to be of service every time these go out, and so do you. And that's why yours has exploded.
And let me answer your question too. I keep doing this. I'm
all
sorry,
good.
but so no, there was never a moment when I thought I was different or thought I was special. I still battle every day between I'm super good and I'm a piece of shit, right? Like I
had the same battle, brother.
Depends on how many check boxes I got on my goal list.
That's
but
right.
the point is, there was never that moment. My plan was to work at a skate shop and live in a 1-bedroom apartment. 1 bedroom was pushing it, studio apartment in LA, and be able to skate every day. That's as far as my goals went, period, point blank. I didn't walk around saying I was an entrepreneur. I didn't say I was going to be rich. I never thought I'd have $1 million. It wasn't even in my wish list. And it was only from that same addiction to growth and evolution that I had in skateboarding, applying that to life, that I've now grown and evolved into this person. And I'm incredibly happy and feel so incredibly lucky. And that's the goal of the podcast and all the content I produce, is teaching other people how to do that same thing, right? How do you set up growth, and how do you become, maybe you're not born addicted to growth. I can get you addicted, right? I'm like the big cigarette, I'm like the big tobacco company.
For sure.
I can give you a couple things that'll get you real hooked on growth, and you'll be shocked at where you are a year from now.
It's because you get those wins.
Yeah.
So you'll show them something to get them those quick wins, like a drug dealer,
Yeah.
right? And then you feel like it's possible. Once you put yourself in that exact situation,
Yeah.
you know it's possible, because you're
Yeah.
like, you get those little hits of dopamine where you're like, I did it. And then if you have someone like yourself supporting them, and then you're proud of them,
Yep.
just like I'm sure Rob was with you, it's like that gives you the confidence to keep going when it's hard.
Oh yeah, and I think that, like, whatever, to your point, I would trade, like, the feeling that you get from saying, you know what, I'm just going to record a podcast once a week for a year. That's it. I'm just going to do that. See where that takes me. The feeling that you get after hitting that year is 50 times the feeling you get, believe me or don't, I'm telling you it's the truth, pulling off the lot in a new Lamborghini.
It happened to me. And here's what's even more powerful
Yeah.
is the DMs I get saying your podcast has changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'll take that over any dollar amount ever.
Yeah. And then the money follows.
It follows it.
You know,
that's like,
yeah.
people don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
when you're over delivering value, and even that word value is getting a little bit thrown around
Yeah.
now, but when you're really trying to help and you're you have pure intention of that,
Mm-hmm.
it just works. And I didn't do my podcast for a year because I was afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did it and it worked really well. And now I'm addicted to this part because I want to provide more
Yeah.
and just help as many people as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I guess I forgot what led us on the podcast sort of train. But the other thing that I wanted to say is, like, my new thing is everyone should create. Do I honestly think everyone in the world should have a podcast? Probably not. It's probably better we don't. But, like, if you're pursuing any niche thing whatsoever, and not even, don't get lost in the word niche. Like, I don't care if it's lawn services. I don't care what it is. You should start a podcast or start some sort of exercise that forces you to make yourself go out of your comfort zone, learn, and share what you learned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're out of your comfort zone because it's the guy down the street that does something really well, or it's, you're taking shots at a big CEO in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you're sharing with 5 people or 5 million. That practice is a growth accelerator. It's magical, man. And I think that's what happened with my podcast. And I think that everyone, it's a challenge. We were talking about challenges and 90 days and all that stuff. Like, everyone should challenge yourself to do something along those lines.
I completely agree. And it could be your cell phone. It could be a podcast. It could be a Facebook Live. It could be an Instagram Live.
Yeah.
We have so many tools now. There is no really excuses.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, to your point, man, like it's good to get out of your comfort zone to learn new shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no reason why you can't. And then you can just see if it works. If you like it, keep doing it. If you don't, stop. There was some crazy stat that came out. It was like 92% of all podcasts stop at episode 11 and never continue because they don't get the downloads, or they look at the metrics and they just think they're not good enough, so they stop.
But isn't it interesting that I'm guessing if you looked at the statistics about gym memberships, the same is true. If you look at the statistics
probably worse for gym memberships,
sure,
right?
but it looks the same, right? If you look at the statistics for small businesses, the same is true. If you look at the statistics for anything that human beings have to, there's a wall. There's a first wall that you hit with any of that stuff, and it's pushing through that wall, and then the couple more that are coming until you really just get in a flow that is so necessary. And that exact thing is what separates successful, happy, fulfilled people from coulda, woulda, shoulda, miserable people, is pushing through that moment, episode 11 or month 12 of your new business or week 2 of your gym membership. Or it's that you can see these patterns over and over.
Yep.
You just got to push through that, man.
It's because those patterns usually show up all throughout your life. And if you're willing to look at them, you'll be able to connect those puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee that I was listening to that stat before I even launched my podcast. So I knew going in, I was at least doing 12.
At least.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that weird little gem locked into my brain. I'm like, I'm not quitting. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another lesson I learned is I will, and I'm sure a lot of people do this on different levels. So I've always said that my biggest downfall, or my biggest, whatever you want to call it, negative trait is like anxiety. Like, I'll make things worse than they are before they are.
Yep.
And I know everyone deals with it on some level. I think mine is probably slightly above average, but not, I'm not taking medication. But, but what I started doing is, before I do a podcast that I'm really dreading, because I'll not really so much still, but I will dread podcasts that I'm doing for my show.
Right.
Because I don't know the person. Maybe I'm intimidated. Maybe I don't know much about them, whatever. Also events, social events that I should be at that are just good networking events, but there's no real initiative or like agenda. I hate. So there's these things. I started writing down how I felt about like leading up to it and all the reasons I probably shouldn't go. And, it's probably going to be lame, or it's going to be awkward. I'm going to blow it on the podcast, or I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'll have no one to talk to, whatever. And then I force myself to go and I write down what the actual result was. And ever since I've done it, there hasn't been one when I was right. I haven't been right once, man.
That's so powerful.
And there's been so many podcasts when I have told myself things like, oh, you don't need one this week, or she wouldn't be a good guest, or I don't know, man, maybe the story isn't quite good enough. And the root of it is actually just that I'm getting out of my comfort zone.
You're afraid,
and yeah. And then you go do it, and every time I drive home that night, like, oh man,
Pumped.
this is so sick. I just got so much new information or a new way of looking at something. And I just want everyone listening, if that's a goal of yours, is to, I'm guessing that's why you're listening to this podcast, is because you want to kind of grow and achieve, is like, do that, man. Audit if your judgment's even right.
Write that down, because that is a huge lesson. Write down all your thoughts before, all your fears, and then write back all your little success stories afterwards, and make sure you reaffirm those to yourself, because a lot of the shit we tell ourselves just isn't true.
No, it's scary. It's scary how dumb we can be. You know what I mean? It's like, it's me. I know me, but man, I'm wrong. I'm just wrong.
Oh yeah, it's because like those fears are there for a reason. So is our ego, and when those things start having these battles in the boardroom upstairs, it can be vicious.
That's interesting, man. But that's what I'm fascinated by, is that's why I say, like, you know, my life has been fueled by growth and evolution. It's got me to a place where I couldn't be happier. And now I'm trying to learn about it on my own for myself and set my direction better for myself and get better at all these tools that I just wasn't taught. Most people aren't taught this. And then tell people what I've learned. And I think I can do my own little tiny baby part of making some people, you know, making life better for some people.
Dude, that's literally all I'm doing, brother. And that's going to be a great place for us to kind of close and end.
There it is.
I'm just trying to share what I've learned.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent a fortune on all this and travels and classes and people. I'm just a regular dude.
Yep.
Sharing my experiences in my travels, in my business world, in my family world. Believe me, I was a very different person at 26 without kids and owned 2 companies than I'm at 42 with 5 companies, wife and kids and all this stuff. Yeah. So I'm just sharing my journey as I go and what stuff has worked and what stuff hasn't. So again, brother, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Please tell all of these folks out there, we're in 100 plus countries, where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, where they can find the brand, where they can follow you on all of your Instagrams and all of your social media handles.
So the easiest way is @drama on Instagram. Podcast is called Short Story Long, everywhere where podcasts are. And then youngandreckless.com will get you to all the clothing. If you do those 3 things,
you're going to be good.
There'll be more than enough. You'll be sick of me.
Awesome, brother, man. Well,
thank you, brother.
Thank you again for having me in your guys' new studio.
Yeah, this was great.
It looks dope. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.